Hi, welcome to Language and Film, where we take a closer look at how language is used creatively in cinema. Imagine you were an author and you were writing a scene about men riding through the desert at night during a thunderstorm. You might write it plainly, like this: They traveled by night through the desert as it stormed. Or you might try something a bit more poetic. They rode through the endless night across that ghostly plain, their hunched silhouettes outlined only by the occasional flash of lightning. Those are both fine, but they aren't exactly memorable. Now here's how Pulitzer Prize-winning author Cormac McCarthy wrote that scene. That night they rode through a region electric and wild, where strange shapes of soft blue fire ran over the metal of the horses' trappings, and the wagon wheels rolled in hoops of fire, and little shapes of pale blue light came to perch in the ears of the horses and the beards of the men. All night sheet lightning quaked sourceless to the west beyond the midnight thunderheads, making a bluish day of the distant desert, the mountains on the sudden skyline stark and black and livid, like a land of some other order out there whose true geology was not stone but fear. The thunder moved up from the southwest, and lightning lit the desert all around them, blue and barren. Great clanging reaches ordered out of the absolute night like some demon kingdom summoned up, where some changeling land that come the day would leave them neither trace nor smoke nor ruin more than any troubling dream. This is one of my favorite passages from McCarthy's Blood Meridian, but the truth is you can open the book to almost any page and find language just as rich and poetic. The writing feels more like an incantation than narration, a description not of place, but of cosmic condition. McCarthy doesn't write scenes, he writes reckonings. His language is ritualistic, terrifying, sublime, a voice unmatched in modern literature. And yet, for decades, Blood Meridian has been considered unfilmable. Not because of its violence, though it's unflinching, not because of its structure, though it's unconventional, but because the book's true power doesn't live in its events. It lives in the language, the rhythm, the scale, the unrelenting vision. Over time, his style became sparser. His syntax shortened. His vocabulary grew more streamlined. But the moral architecture remained the same: fate, death, and man's place in a decaying, amoral universe. When the Coen brothers adapted McCarthy's book, No Country for Old Men, in 2007, something rare happened. McCarthy's literary sensibility found perfect cinematic expression. It's a faithful translation not only of McCarthy's work, but of his worldview. No Country is more than a triumph of adaptation. It's arguably the Coens' finest film, and that's saying something, considering the worst Coen brothers movie is still better than most things out there. No Country isn't my personal favorite, nor perhaps yours, but from every filmmaking standpoint, writing, acting, cinematography, structure, it is a breathtaking masterpiece. It will be studied in film institutes 100 years from now, if such things still exist. Then, 6 years later, in 2013, came The Counselor. This would be McCarthy's first original screenplay, and not just any production, Ridley Scott directing. Ridley Scott, who once tried and failed to adapt Blood Meridian, was now working from brand new McCarthy material. A huge cast of stars, a Pulitzer winner's mind paired with Hollywood firepower. And yet it seemed like almost nobody liked it. Where No Country was revered, The Counselor was ridiculed, dismissed as incoherent, overwritten, and pretentious. And yet, at first glance, both movies have much in common. Both involve a man who makes a morally gray but superficially innocuous decision regarding money and drug cartels. He thinks it's a manageable endeavor. Yet this sets off a chain of events from which there is no recovery. But the nihilism of these films runs deeper, probing whether any act we commit is truly of consequence, as there may be nothing that can ward off the inevitable clutches of our own demise. This is determinism at its bleakest. The central question in both films is not whether the protagonist will survive, because survival was never a possibility to begin with. Rather, it's whether anything we say or do carries meaning within a universe governed not by morality, but by causality and entropy. If death is inevitable from the outset, immune to all effort or pleading, then where is the place for hope, or freedom, or redemption?
Why did they do that?
To make a joke. To show that death doesn't care, that death has no meaning.
The counselor is filled with philosophical reflections and tirades about truth, about violence, about the gravity of small decisions. It's a film that speaks in aphorisms and parables, where jewelers and drug lords alike deliver metaphysical treatises.
And that is because when it comes to grief, the normal rules of exchange do not apply because grief transcends value.
But cinema doesn't run on ideas. It runs on conflict, drama, and action. No Country for Old Men is just as philosophical, but it never announces itself that way. Instead of watching two people discuss fate, we see it demonstrated.
Call it.
No. I ain't gonna call it.
Part of what makes No Country work so well is that it wasn't written for the screen. It was adapted. The Coen brothers, in shaping McCarthy's novel into film, made surgical decisions. They cut most of the internal narration, condensed the dialogue, and let silence build tension. The stillness itself creates dread, reinforcing the emptiness that envelops the characters. There are a few scenes where the characters speak philosophically, yes, but they're brief, restrained, no more than a few sentences.
If the rule you followed, Brugida is, of what use was the rule?
The counselor, by contrast, feels like unfiltered logarithm.
You don't think that's a bit cold?
I think truth has no temperature.
It reads like something that should have been edited but wasn't.
Some might grade it higher.
You might grade it higher.
I should keep that in mind.
You might keep that in mind.
You really don't, do you?
I really don't.
Scenes are built not around decisions or turning points, but around abstract discussions. And worse, those discussions never actually change anything. The counselor is warned repeatedly what awaits him, but doesn't listen or seem to care. When scenes end, no one's path has shifted. Nobody grows. Nobody learns. At their core, both films ask, what happens when a man believes he can make a small moral compromise and remain untouched? In No Country, Moss steals a briefcase of cash and tries to walk away clean. In The Counselor, Fassbender's unnamed lawyer enters a drug deal and loses everything. But Moss makes choices. He fights back, he adapts, he attempts to outwit what's coming for him. His fate, while tragic, is narratively earned. The counselor, by contrast, makes no choices at all. He signs a paper off screen. He is warned. He is warned again. And then he is destroyed. McCarthy's fiction often suggests that moral clarity offers no protection, that to choose is not to escape.
And you want to choose, but there's no choosing there. There's only accepting. The choosing was done a long time ago.
But cinema demands more than philosophical punishment. It requires empathy, engagement.
I decided to make you a special project of mine. You ain't gonna have to come look for me at all.
We follow Moss into death. We sit beside Sheriff Bell in his quiet bewilderment. We understand them. In The Counselor, we watch it all collapse from a distance. The main character isn't even named. The characters, at least the men, refer to each other by their last names. They're lightly drawn sketches of people. We know them only through what they say, not what they do. And people do not reveal themselves through what they say. People can say anything.
This is a cynical business. We seek only imperfection.
Yes.
McCarthy's language is his gift, but in The Counselor, it becomes a weight the film cannot carry. His dialogue is stylized, elevated, deliberately literary.
We, of course, are another matter. It is our faintness of heart that has driven us to the edge of ruin.
It may read as precise on the page, but spoken aloud, it lands with awkward formality.
The world in which you seek to undo the mistakes that you made is different from the world where the mistakes were made.
It reminds us that this is fiction, that these are not real people speaking. By contrast, in No Country, the dialogue is sparse, grounded, and often mundane, but it reveals everything.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
Take the gas station scene. On the surface, it's small talk about weather and business hours. But beneath it is a gauntlet.
See about closing.
Yes, sir.
What time do you close?
Now, we close now.
Now is not a time. What time do you close?
Generally around dark, at dark.
Consider the scene where Sheriff Bell approaches the motel. Bell hesitates, then enters. The room is empty. He has, in essence, flipped a coin. This moment mirrors the randomness, but this time the coin spares. And in case you missed that, the theme is reinforced by the final shot of a coin on the floor, used to unscrew the vent where Moss hid the money. The Coens trust their audience to understand the visual language of the screen. I said earlier that the counselor failed, and on first glance that might appear to be the case. In hindsight, it's easy to say, you should have done it differently. You alienated the audience. But we should give its creators more credit. This wasn't the work of amateurs. These are visionaries, bold experimenters, not obedient craftsmen. They weren't interested in the safe way. They were trying to make something new. That sort of risky originality means that failure has to be on the table. And I love Blood Meridian precisely because it dares to stretch the English language into something unrecognizable. It dares to fail. The creators of The Counselor were reaching for that same kind of innovation, trying to make a movie built on nihilism, determinism, and elevated unnatural language. That is not a safe bet. And maybe the film fell apart under the weight of its ambition. Maybe it collapsed in the gap between studio expectations and auteur intent. But I doubt McCarthy or Scott regretted a frame of it, because they weren't trying to make money. They were trying to make something singular. And for every failure, there is the possibility of something astonishing. We must dig through the mud to unearth the gemstones. So if we return to that central question which haunts much of McCarthy's work, what can we possibly do? What choice can we make that carries meaning in a world where death is certain? I think any great artist might quietly point to the media on their shelves, to Alien, to Blade Runner, to Blood Meridian, to No Country for Old Men, and say these.
We announce to the darkness that we will not be diminished by the brevity of our lives, that we will not thereby be made less.